I'm Edwin Warfield. I'm the publisher of Citybiz. I'm honored today to interview Neil Willner, who's an associate at Royer Cooper Cohen Braunfeld, and he's also co-chair of the Cannabis Industry Group. Welcome, Neil.
Thanks, Edwin. It's exciting to be here today. I'm happy to speak with you.
Can you tell us about your background and how you entered the cannabis industry?
So prior to joining Royer Cooper Cohen and Braunfeld and co-chairing their cannabis practice team, I was an attorney at a AM 100 law firm, Wilson Elser, that had about 800 attorneys and 30 plus offices across the country. While at Wilson Elser, I was a litigator by training, representing doctors, hospitals, and medical device manufacturers in medical malpractice lawsuits. About 5 years ago, we had a malpractice insurance carrier who had been insuring doctors out west, and they were realizing that many of their doctors were recommending medical marijuana to their patients, but there was no real best practices or guidance to advise or guide the doctors on recommending marijuana. So they asked us for some input. I volunteered to jump right in, and from that first project on, I really fell in love with the subject matter. It's a brand new, at that time, it was a brand new area of the law that many folks weren't really looking into, especially on the intersection of medical malpractice and medical marijuana. And from there, I was able to get more involved with our cannabis practice team at Wilson Elser, working with clients on both the hemp and marijuana side of the industry, developing a niche for policy, regulation, and compliance. So for the past 5 years, I've been working almost exclusively with cannabis clients across the country on regulatory and compliance issues, helping them navigate the myriad of regulation, different state regulation, the different local zoning ordinances, and all the different municipal governments, local governments, and state governments that have a hand in governing marijuana and hemp in this country.
If you tell us about the firm's cannabis group.
Sure. So our firm, Royer Cooper Cohen Braunfeld, I think I'm going to start saying RCCB for short because it's a mouthful with all four names. RCCB's Cannabis Practice Group is a robust group of multidisciplined attorneys that have vast experience in many different areas of the law. We have attorneys from our corporate and transactional practice teams, from our private equity practice teams, from our real estate practice team, from our trademark practice team, and our litigation practice team, servicing our clients in the cannabis industry. And the type of clients that we work with range from private equity funds that are investing in cannabis. We serve as fund counsel. We help form some of those funds that deploy capital into cannabis businesses. To helping cannabis clients manage their intellectual property. Our trademark group is heavily involved with many of our cannabis practices, given the unique issues presented to cannabis clients and their brands, and the lack of federal trademark protection for many cannabis products. Our real estate practice, like I mentioned, is also very heavily involved with our cannabis team. We work with many cannabis operators across the country, helping them negotiate real estate transactions, closing deals, and the like. And then again, like any other area of the law, there is many unique issues presented to cannabis operators who are looking to purchase real estate or to lease real estate. In the U.S. Again, most of it stemming from the federal illegality of marijuana.
And so what types of matters are you personally working on?
The majority of my clients are either hemp operators or marijuana operators, and I'm working with them to help navigate the different regulations across the country. I have one client, for example, that is a hemp has a hemp license in California that cultivates hemp and processes hemp, and I've been working with them over the past year or so to locate different markets that permit hemp-derived ingredients in regulated marijuana products. So it's a very in the weeds, so to speak, facet of the industry, combining both hemp regulation and marijuana regulation to try and find those key states where they're able to introduce their hemp ingredients into marijuana products. In addition to the regulatory side of the industry, I also work closely with a couple of trade associations, primarily the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, or TACH, as it's better known. I serve on their CBD task force, and I am charged with drafting responsive comments to both federal and state level rules and regulations surrounding hemp and marijuana. For example, last summer and into last September and October, we did a lot of policy work drafting responsive comments to the USDA's hemp rules, the DEA's hemp rules. New York recently updated its hemp cannabinoid rules, so I quarterbacked the comment drafting process on behalf of Attach in response to New York's request for comment. So it's been exciting and really exhilarating to be on the pulse of the industry, working with leaders in the industry and affecting change that makes sense for a lot of the businesses that are currently operating in the industry. Really, as we gear up for the eventual federal legalization, which is certainly on the horizon. Senator Schumer, along with Senators Booker and Wyden, recently introduced a federal legalization bill that I am working closely with Attach and the International Cannabis Bar Association on drafting and commenting on the legislation and suggesting edits and improvements that the senators and their staff can implement in the next draft of the discussion bill.
So what is the regulatory environment in New York State, the city, and Pennsylvania?
So do we have about 2 weeks to go through that entire question? In all seriousness, the state of cannabis is always in flux across the country. In New York specifically, Governor Cuomo signed the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act into law at the end of March 2021. Which legalized the adult use and recreational use of cannabis. It also made it permissible for New Yorkers to possess up to 3 ounces of marijuana without getting into any legal trouble. While possession of cannabis is currently legal in New York, there is no regulatory program yet. So New Yorkers and tourists can't yet walk into a dispensary and purchase marijuana legally. That process will take a long time to roll out regulation. Under the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, Governor Cuomo was required to appoint a handful of folks to the Office of Cannabis Management and the Cannabis Control Board, while the state legislature was also required to appoint some folks. The legislative session, unfortunately, closed in mid-June without any appointments to the Office of Cannabis Management or the Cannabis Control Board. So currently, New York has no regulatory body yet to draft regulation and to begin rolling out the application process to approve recreational marijuana cultivators, processors, and dispensaries. So we're kind of in this waiting period, and a lot of the industry is on the sidelines, waiting with bated breath until the regulators are appointed and the regulatory process begins. There's been a unofficial race between New York and New Jersey because as I'm sure many folks remember, it's 2 or 3 years ago, both governors from New York and New Jersey announced that they are in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana, yet both were very slow to legalize it. With the 2020 election, rather, New Jersey legalized marijuana with a ballot referendum. But still, they faced some hurdles because there was no implementing legislation. The enabling legislation, rather, wasn't passed until I guess January or February of 2021. And so New Jersey, even though like New York, New Jersey has passed legislation legalizing marijuana, but there is still no program there either. So you can't walk into a dispensary and purchase recreational marijuana legally. New Jersey is probably a little bit further ahead than New York because they have their regulatory bodies appointed, and there is a mandate in the legislation that has to be emergency regulations released by August 21st, I believe the date is. So, with that being less than a month away, the industry is very, very excited to see what those draft regulations look like. The regulatory body in New Jersey has been hosting monthly meetings as well with industry stakeholders to discuss some parts of the regulation. Unfortunately, in New York, we haven't had any of that yet. Pennsylvania, on the other hand, only has a medical marijuana program. They do not yet have recreational marijuana. About a month ago, I guess, I think almost exactly a month ago, the governor of Pennsylvania signed into law an update and amendments to Pennsylvania's existing medical marijuana program that made permanent a lot of the changes to the program that he issued during COVID via executive order. For example, curbside pickup for medical patients will continue to be permissible even after the COVID pandemic is long gone. Patients in Pennsylvania will be able to purchase up to 90 days supply of their medical marijuana as opposed to what was 30 days supply of their medical marijuana, cutting down the amount of visits they need to take to the medical dispensary. With that, there was a bipartisan effort in Pennsylvania recently to garner support for the recreational use of marijuana. I think Senators Street and I forget the other state legislator, the Republican state legislator, issued a memo about a potential adult use program in the state to garner attention and support on the issue, but that proposed legislation has not been released yet. So Pennsylvania is waiting to see whether legislation to legalize marijuana will be released, and if so, what type of support it gets in the legislature. They're kind of adding fuel to this fire. Connecticut also legalized recreational marijuana just a couple of weeks ago, and they already have their regulatory, some of their regulatory body appointed, like New Jersey. So Connecticut now might be leapfrogging New York in the race to launch their adult use program. So needless to say, it's been a very exciting time over the past 6 months on the East Coast, specifically in the Northeast, for in the marijuana industry.
So is there any part of the RCCB Cannabis Group story that you'd like to share with us that you haven't shared?
Yeah. So one of the allures of RCCB, and one of the reasons why I made the move a few months ago to come over, is the entrepreneurial spirit of the firm and their willingness to kind of go the extra mile for our clients. There's been a big push to be a true client service provider and to put client needs first. And willingness at the upper levels of management within the firm and the executive committee to really allow for the flexibility to work with all sorts of clients across every industry. that type of support offered by the executive committee and the partners at the firm is really promising for attorneys, especially in emerging industries like cannabis, where the rules haven't been really established fully. That there is a lot of gray area, and clients are seeking that expert advice. It's been a great harbinger for self growth. And also teamwork, drawing from the experience of my colleagues, relying on their expertise in their given fields to help apply to my clients, and conversely, it's a great environment for me to bring some of my knowledge to help service their clients too.
So Neil, I want to thank you for sharing your time and learning more about your career and the cannabis practice at RCCB. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Thanks, Edwin. It was a pleasure speaking with you.